wrong with you people? Haven't you ever seen a walking stick before? My name is Rhoda, but you can call me Rod. That's what Moses called me. Yep, I said Moses, the great man himself. Well, Moses taught me something about keeping rules. Now, I know you people don't always like to pay attention to rules. Ever since your great-great-great-grandfathers and mothers, Adam and Eve, had problems with that snake, you had a hard time keeping rules. Well, if it makes you feel any better, Moses had problems too. You see, Moses used to be a prince. But one day, Moses made a foolish choice and broke a big-time Egyptian rule. Uh-oh. Uh-oh is right. You see, Moses was a prince, living in a palace, eating all the candy bars he wanted. Now he had to run away into the desert, and he was living in a tent with sand in his sandwiches and taking care of a bunch of smelly sheep. I'm sorry to have to say it, but sheep are just plain dumb. They will go wandering off if you don't watch out. Well, one day, Moses and I were up on Mount Sinai, looking for this silly sheep named Petunia, when all of a sudden, we came around a big rock and saw a bush on fire. It was very strange. The fire was blazing hot, but the bush didn't burn up at all. And then a voice spoke out of the bush, and it was the voice of God. Moses, take your shoes off, for you are standing on holy ground. Well, Moses took his flip-flops off real fast. He was hanging on to me and shaking so hard that I got dizzy. God spoke again and told Moses to go back to Egypt and bring all his Hebrew family and friends to Mount Sinai for church. Well, this news really stressed Moses out. It made me nervous too, because when Moses was nervous, he liked to whittle. Stick, will. Honestly, if God spoke to you out of a bush, wouldn't you just say yes, sir, and do what he told you to do? Not Moses. Oh, no. He made up all these excuses why he couldn't obey God. And that's when it happened. God said, Moses, what's that in your hand? And Moses answered, my staff. And God said, throw it down. All of a sudden, I was a snake. up by the tail. How embarrassing. The next thing I knew, I was a walking stick again. Then God commanded Moses to tell the Egyptian king Pharaoh to let the Hebrew people leave. And if Pharaoh wouldn't let them go, then Moses was to do the whole snake trick thing again. I got to thinking, why do I have to suffer when it's someone else disobeying God's command? But that's the way it is. When we break God's rules, we hurt others as well as ourselves. What happened next is a long story, but I'll try to make it short. Moses went back to Egypt and told the Hebrew people to come with him to Mount Sinai for church. They said, okay. But Pharaoh said, no way. And God said, you'll pay. 10 times Pharaoh disobeyed, and each time God sent a plague. That's something really gross, like frogs everywhere, grasshoppers in your orange juice, and you don't want to know the rest. And I ended up doing that snake thing, not once, but twice. Finally, Pharaoh said, okay. And the Hebrew people followed Moses and me out of town right up to the Red Sea. But that Pharaoh turned out to be as dumb as a sheep. He changed his mind and started chasing the Hebrews with his army. And then the coolest thing happened. God sent a strong wind and opened a street right through the middle of the Red Sea. Yes, sir. We walked through on dry land. No one can call me a stick in the mud. Those foolish Egyptians followed us right into the sea, but they didn't make it. When the last Hebrew got through to the other side, the water came crashing down on Pharaoh and his army. After a good long hike, we reached Mount Sinai. All the people gathered around the bottom of the mountain to worship, and Moses went up to talk with God, and God gave him some new rules for the people to follow. But it took a long time. So the people began getting bored. They began to whisper and pass notes. And they forgot all about God. They even made a golden statue shaped like a baby cow and bowed down and worshipped it. Well, God is kind of like your mom. He knows what you're doing. So he sent Moses back down with the new rules written on stone tablets. But when Moses saw all the rule breaking going on, he got so mad he threw the tablets down and they broke all to pieces. In fact, you could say Moses is the only person who ever broke all 10 commandments at once. Well, God was very angry with the Hebrew people, but Moses prayed and asked God to forgive them for their sins. And he did. God doesn't like it when we break his rules, but he is always willing to forgive us if we are truly sorry. Well, God took Moses back up on the mountain and wrote down all the rules again. We call these rules the 10 Commandments, and here they are. 1. Don't worship anybody or anything but God. Don't make any statues or idols to worship. 3. Don't use God's name in a to worship and rest. 5, honor your mom and dad. 6, don't murder anyone. 7, keep your marriage promises. 8, don't steal. 9, don't tell lies about anyone. 10, don't wish you had something that belongs to someone else. God is perfect, and His commandments are perfect. God knows we aren't perfect, but if we ask Him, He promises to help us keep His rules.